With the New York Knicks firing Derek Fisher and having, again, some turnover at the head coach position, do you think it would make sense for the New York Knicks to shop Carmelo Anthony? And my answer for that would be if it's for the right price. And by that, I would mean you would trade Carmelo potentially to a contender, and you would get preferably a two-way player younger than Carmelo Anthony who could be potentially entering or in the very beginning stages of their prime. Because the one determining factor in my mind that could make any potential deal worth it would be that Anthony right now is probably at the tail end of his prime, who has had some issues with his knees, and will get inherently less efficient offensively. He has average defensive skills, although he has improved and shown more energy over the last few years. But his defense is never going to be a strength by any stretch. It's average. But if his scoring becomes less efficient, there would still be interest now to trade him to a contender or a team that feels like they could become a contender with him on their roster and have Porzingis and any potential trade pieces trending upwards towards their primes together with the expanded salary that's going to come from the new TV deal versus Carmelo Anthony trending downwards towards the tail end of his career and Porzingis trending upward. You kind of have a little bit of a contrast. And the only thing I would really make sense, preferably I'd rather get one really good player as opposed to pieces, because the NBA is a star-driven league. You can only have 5 players on the court at one time. Only one person can have the ball. And stars really dictate great play. For the exception of the Golden State Warriors, who have an elite player in Stephen Curry and just fantastic pieces surrounding him. They just have done a phenomenal job organizationally developing the entire roster. Or if you have a guy like Greg Popovich and Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, these guys who have become staples and understand the system as a whole, which the Knicks have neither. So this was just why, preferably, I would prefer one really good player. But some guys that you could potentially think of who could make a potential fit, one being Jimmy Butler, who the Bulls have said since he has kind of taken this step towards superstardom, has become a little more arrogant, a little more self-centered, and for the right price in the potential playoff spot, they could be thinking possibly about moving him. He did have a 5-year, $95 million extension, and they did link him last year to potential trades for Carmelo Anthony. So Jimmy Butler being a strong two-way player who I can't see would dislike the New York Lights would be a guy that would be, in my opinion, fantastic if you could acquire. People have said Blake Griffin. The only thing about that is I don't see why the Clippers wouldn't potentially consider that trade because of the bad press and the bad media. It's one of those situations where the organization and the player just might need to change the scenery. But I see Porzingis that he's getting older, and as he matures from a physical standpoint, I still see him being a more, assuming he progresses to the point where everyone wants him to, more dominant power forward than center. I feel like his speed and height gives him more of an advantage over a host of different defenders that would play power forward as versus center. I feel like center, the weight differential wouldn't really maximize his size and his speed. But then again, at the same time, he could be a rare center that could play at the three-point line, take away a defender away from the paint, and really develop a unique set of skills at the center position, given his abilities and their potential progression. But I think Porzingis would be better set at power forward, and Blake Griffin is better set as a power forward, so that might be a slight contrast, but you never know with how players progress and mesh together. But Blake Griffin could be another one, just playing with an up-tempo and with the type of flair that Blake Griffin possesses, along with Porzingis, who has pretty much reinvigorated the New York audience to Knicks basketball. Could be something that would just be fun to watch in general, so that would be another player. People have said that Lakers always have interest with Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony has a no-trade clause, so I don't see why Carmelo Anthony would want to go to the Lakers, considering that you would have to give up at least one of their extremely young pieces, being either D'Angelo Russell or Julius Randle. And considering how bad that team has looked, I don't know why he would give up his situation in New York to just pretty much have turnover again and go to the Lakers. Because even if the Lakers were to sign, let's say, Kevin Durant, which is also factors into my rationale for why the Knicks would potentially want to trade Carmelo Anthony, is because any kind of superstar that could consider the Knicks is probably a high-volume shooter, is someone that's going to want the ball in their hands. And Porzingis is not someone you have to worry about with taking 16 to 18 shots a game. He's just a fantastic reinvigorator, so to speak. So he's someone that would make someone want to come to New York to play with. But Carmelo's the type of player where, for example, Kevin Durant this season or Russell Westbrook in 2 seasons are guys that want the ball in their hands, that are going to want 16 to 18 shots a game. So Carmelo Anthony makes these superstars look and think to themselves, well, with Melo there, am I going to get my touches? And if you trade down with the Knicks to get a two-way player or a group of younger pieces that have promise, a superstar could look at the Knicks and say to themselves, well, I like where they're trending. I like Porzingis. And Melo's not there to think to themselves, well, how am I going to get all of my touches? Can I be one of the guys there in a New York market that's trending upwards? And that could potentially help from a kind of non-linear sort of thinking that if Melo isn't there, a high-volume shooter could look at the Knicks and think to themselves, well, this might make a little bit of sense. But that's just my opinion. It's very on the surface level. I haven't given too much thought to it. But if the Knicks were to trade Carmelo Anthony, those would kind of be things that I would have in mind. A two-way player or a group of young pieces that could potentially help the Knicks in future free agent classes. If not, probably makes the most sense to stick with them because he's not going to go to a dumpster hole anyway because he has a no-trade clause. One of 4 players in the NBA with that. But that's just my opinion. I want to know what you guys think. This is Apple with All Things Sports, and I'll see you guys later.